Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Summit Sam, aka Low Gear, if you know my trail name and have been following me. I'm here today to kind of discuss, as briefly as I can, the things I didn't realize about the AT before I started. Now, if you're planning a trip on the AT or planning to do the AT and you're scouring all these videos to try to figure out what it is you need and all that stuff and what you didn't know, and hopefully you'll know, you're going to be watching a lot of YouTube videos. Now, with those YouTube videos, they are the highlight reels, myself included. We only give you a small, tiny slice of what we actually do on the trail because you just don't want 24/7 of us, because that would be boring. So, I tried to show the good, the bad, the in-between, the most interesting, really. And that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see all the boring stuff where you're always digging the cat holes or setting up the tents or cooking the food or trudging up the hill for hours on end or trying to sit there figuring out how you're going to get down this big hill. Maybe some of that, but not all of that. So it gets pretty boring. So it is the highlight reel. And, you definitely, once you get on trail, you realize there is a daily rhythm to camp life, to trail life, and that you just kind of have to find your own groove. Now, one of the other things I didn't realize, because no one really mentioned it per se, was that when you're out on the trail, your emotions are a lot more raw. I find things are just, there's a lot more intensity, so the highs and the lows are much more intense, and that may be just because you're exposed to the elements and you feel things more intensely than you would have, or that you just lack distraction and you have nowhere to sort of self-soothe and comfort yourself, or by watching TV or something. Although I guess some people do Netflix at night. I never got that good of reception, and I don't own Netflix, so I didn't do that. But some people will also just listen to music, audiobooks, or podcasts, and I definitely did that. And I do recommend that. But I did enjoy just also walking in nature and listening to the sounds of things, the birds, seeing the insects. I found I paid a lot more attention to what was around me out there. But, it didn't mean my emotions weren't any less intense. I found I did feel things a lot more intensely, particularly when I was cold. I did not like that. But, that may also just be due to the fact that I am me and, 50-year-old perimenopausal woman with mood swings. I don't think so, but I'm sure that had some effect to it. And just an added note, if you do want to listen to podcasts or audiobooks or any of that type of stuff, download them before you go, because reception out there sucks. And I found I didn't get reception in a lot of places, so if you wanted something, you kind of had to have it before. Now, what else about the trail? Definitely one thing I did notice is there was a pressure to make miles. Now, sometimes that might be a tramily thing. You're trying to keep up with people, so you want to do their miles versus what you're comfortable with. In the very beginning, I didn't find there was a pressure to do big miles, because you're only beginning, and everyone tells you start slow because you don't want to burn yourself out, and most people do that, so it's not really an issue. But once you can do the big miles, there's a lot of people who do big miles, and that's where things start to separate out. I definitely found that I had a sweet spot of 16 to 18 miles a day, which was comfortable for me, but I would push other days. There were a lot of people who were comfortable doing 16 mile days. Other people were trying to get as big and far and fast as they could. So it's all over the place, but do just kind of do your hike, even if you're trying to keep up with people. It's just sometimes not worth it. I know people want to stay with their families because it's a form of community, it's comfort, it's friendship. It's nice to be around people. I had Jeff, so I didn't have to worry about that. We did have a tramily, and not all tramilies are great. Some can have some toxic elements to them, and it's okay to step away and do your own thing. And even if that's not the case, just simply because you want different things out of the hike, again, it's okay. You can always keep in touch with these people. That is the nature of social media. and, you know, emails and letters and all those good stuff. One of the other things I did notice, and, you know, why a lot of people want to keep tramleys or keep their friends close, is that you get lonely. The trail, like, even though I had Jeff every day, and, you know, I didn't necessarily hike with him every day, but he was around. I can see, and I saw a lot of people, you know, they crave that intimacy with their family, their friends, their partners. Just someone who knows them well, who they can vent on, cry on, share, laugh, share an experience with. You get lonely. Now with the SOBO crew, because we're a little older, for the most part, not all, we tended to have our family come visit us a lot if we weren't already traveling with them. And most people didn't actually travel with a partner. I did find I was one of the very few ones who did. And even, you know, in the beginning, Jeff was not keen on it. He really, until he got the van, he wasn't overly thrilled about through hiking. So, you know, it's hard to get two people who want to do the same thing and who are going to do it at the same pace. So, you know, if you can have friends or family visit you on occasion, not necessarily hike with you, but just come visit and connect with them, spend a day or two with them, it can mean a world of difference, just to your mental health. And, you know, you need to take care of your mental health. So when you're doing that hike, make sure you actually do consider that, you know. Make sure that you take those days off to go skinny dipping in the pond, or take an extra day off in town because, you know, there's a good restaurant you want to go to, or you just want to watch a movie. There's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes that's a good thing. It's what you need to keep you going, because there's going to be a time on the hike, I found, at least for me personally, and I suspect for most people, because they do all say the hike is, oh my gosh, that's an actual tick. Okay, sorry, I got distracted there. I actually had a tick on me. I only had 2 ticks the entire trail. They never attached, and I didn't really have an issue with them. I come back home in December, almost January, and I find a tick on me. Again, it didn't attach, it just was sitting on my hand, but I'm just shocked. Anyway, as I was saying, I did find on the hike, and as most people have mentioned, that at some point the hike isn't about the physical, it's about the mental. That, you know, you just need to be able to figure out how to get up day after day after day and hike, because it's more than just about just hiking. I mean, there's lots of decisions to be made where you're camping, and I know they all sound kind of trivial when you put it like, oh, well, you got to think where to camp, what to eat, how many calories, set up your tent, get your water. But those little day-to-day decisions are things that you don't think about when you're at home. So, you know, it is a lot of decision making you have to make. So, you know, you just kind of need to think after a while that, okay, it's mental, I can do this, you're in a routine, but you do need to take care of your mental health. So, you know, take those days off. It's a good thing. As well for your mental health. One thing, now I did hear about it prior to, sort of, not really though, that news travels fast up and down the trail. And it's true, it really, really does. So if you're talking smack about anyone, they're going to hear it eventually. Gossip does fly down the trail. The through hiking community isn't really all that big. I think that's more the case for the Nobos than the Sobos. We were definitely a much, much smaller group, and chances of you meeting up with them again were pretty high. But definitely gossip does travel, so be careful what you say. That being said, it's also really handy when someone has some advice for you, or you know something's coming. For instance, when I met that shady hiker, and I say hiker in quotations because he really wasn't, I had heard about him from other people, and then I also heard about it for a couple of weeks after, just kind of what that person was up to, and you know, the events that occurred around that. So, you know, I was definitely happy I'd made the decisions I had made that day, but you know, it was also a way to keep up on some of these things that, I mean, you know, it's not something that's going to hit the news unless it's really horrible, and thankfully it wasn't. So you just, you know, sometimes you just want to know. But to be noted that the information will travel down the hiking pipeline. That being said, fear-mongering is also something that travels up and down the pipeline. Now, not necessarily within through hikers per se, and I don't think people intentionally fear-monger. I think it's, you know, they're trying to be nice, they're trying to let you know about something up above or whatnot, but your experience is likely going to be different. I had a few day hikers say, oh my gosh, the swamp there, it was up to my knees, it was impossible to cross. But it wasn't. They had a much different experience because, one, they were coming from the other side of the direction, so I could see stuff they couldn't. They had only been on the trail for that afternoon, and I'd been on the trail for a couple of months at that point. Not that that necessarily means anything, but it might mean that I have more problem solving around it because I've experienced it more than once, particularly that day. But so, you know, I found the fear-mongering did tend to be well-intended, but it didn't end up working out that way. But, you know, just so you know that fear-mongering does exist. And that also includes the NOBO and SOBO rivalry, if I were to say that. And I'll probably get some comments about that one. Because, I mean, I knew it was there, and it really is there. I mean, if anyone wants to say, oh, there's no such thing, they're lying. It is. I mean, my personal experience, I definitely noticed it. And it's not to say that it was, you know, good or bad or, oh, we're better than them. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just, you definitely have the NOBOs and the SOBOs because, I mean, that's what we are. We're coming at it very differently. So, you know, the SOBOs have done all these miles by the time you reach the bubble, and the NOBOs have done, let me rephrase that. The NOBOs have done all the miles by the time you reach the bubble, which tends to be Vermont, New Hampshire. And then the SOBOs have done all the elevation, or the big portion of the end elevation. Because there's still a lot of elevation, don't get me wrong. I was actually quite surprised that there was some significant elevation in Georgia and whatnot. So, you know, and the Smokies. But there's definitely, you know, some interesting comments and discussions that you have when you meet and pass them. Some people do really want to know, and if they ask for the advice, give it to them, certainly. If they don't ask for it, I really recommend you don't. Unless, you know, there's specific things like, you know, is there a water source, or how's the weather been, or is the campsite, and blah, 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 those types of things. Then totally pass that information along if they're asking. But if they don't. Because chances are they don't want to know. They know what's ahead of them. They've got it already in their minds. They've done the hike for probably several months, and at that point you've only just begun. So it's going to be a very different experience for both of you. Okay, and this next one. Now, I knew the term, but I had no idea that how prevalent this was. Yellow blazing. Now, yellow blazing is hitchhiking, essentially. If you don't know, you can watch my hiking lingo term. It'll discuss them all. But yellow blazing is hitchhiking. Now, sometimes, and I'm pretty sure probably like 98% of through hikers have yellow blazed, intentionally or non-intentionally. One reason they might yellow blaze unintentionally is because the area they're hiking through has to be bypassed due to flood, fire, it's impassable, whatever reason. So you're going to do it there. You have no choice. That is just, you know, and that's perfectly fine. Or if you get picked up, for example, hitchhiking at a trailhead, and you get dropped off at a slightly different trailhead because that's just how it worked out. There you go. So you skip a couple miles. I don't think anyone really cares. And I'm not passing judgment on those that do, because there's lots of reasons why you might need to yellow blaze. Some people are trying to catch up to their tramily. Some people are just trying to keep up, or they had to go out for injury and then they come back at a different spot, or there's lots of reasons. But it's definitely a lot more prevalent than I thought. So I didn't realize that about through hiking, that probably most people at some point have hitchhiked a couple of extra miles that they did not hike. And it's not a big deal. It's not everybody do you, not judging, just letting you know that that exists out there. Now, another little fun fact I had no idea about was type 2 fun. And maybe you do know about this. I had no idea about type 2 fun. Type 2 fun is, if you're not familiar with it already, is the type of fun after the fact. So you've done some major challenge, like a through hike, for example, or a big run or something. And while you're doing the event, you might be having some fun. You're probably also not having some fun. You're finding it very challenging. But at the end of the day, when you're done and you sort of reflect back on it, you think, wow, okay. I'm really glad I did that. I did have fun. It was enjoyable. You kind of forget the bad stuff. So that's type 2 fun. And I had never heard about that. And I didn't hear about it until we were after the 100-mile. And the Irish family came in through, which is an Irish father and his 2 kids who were like 8 and 10. And they did the whole trail super fast. They were insane, but so sweet. Anyway, he was explaining type 2 fun. And I guess a lot of people have heard of it. Maybe you have. I hadn't. But yeah, I had type 2 fun, and I'm glad I did it. But wow, type 2 fun is hard. Just putting that out there. Now, for some other little things that people maybe don't tell you, and you should, they're kind of more housekeeping type things. Wash your darn drinking water bottles. My goodness, people. So I know people who got sick because they didn't wash their smart water bottles. You got to clean those things, especially if you're putting electrolytes or drink mixes in them, because, bacteria grows. It's not a sterile field in there. You really do just need to wash that stuff. Wash it, let it dry. Air dry, fully. And then you won't get sick. Or you can just replace them. A lot of people did that too. As well as if you are one of those people who are taking ibuprofen on a daily basis, maybe take a day off. It's something your body is telling you and you need some rest. Your body takes a long time to heal, and we don't give it time to do that. And I certainly have no exception. I would take days off though. But my body's still healing after a through hike. Like I said, I still have, stiff ankles and hips. And so, I've got to rebuild up all my strength that I lost. And I didn't know those things. Like, you're going to lose muscle and you're going to gain muscle. And you're going to be sore well after you're done the hike. And you're probably going to forget half the hike. Honestly, it's a blur. Like, I'm still processing it. And I don't know how long it'll take to process. But if I hadn't videotaped it, I'd probably forget most of the stuff and the places I went. So I'm really glad I YouTubed this. But yeah, it's a blur. It's just what happens. Or at least maybe it is because I'm old. I don't know. Another little aspect which I kind of did know is, and this is more particular to anyone who's going southbound, is because you have to carry your food in the 100-mile, don't bring as much food as you think you're going to. You're not going to be as hungry as you think you're going to be. I even planned for that, and I still had way too much food. I just wasn't that hungry for it. And if you're going to mail yourself boxes like months down the road, unless you have a very special diet and you like monotonous food, I would really recommend that you just get your food at resupply, because you just don't know what you're going to be hungry for. My taste changed a lot, and I'm a person who is a creature of habit. I like the same food over and over again, but clearly not as much as I thought I did. And I probably would have gotten really, really skinny if we didn't have the van and I didn't have access to fresher food, because I was not loving the ramen noodles, the macaroni, the mountain houses at all. I mean, maybe I would have if I had no choice, but I did, so I didn't. And finally, and this one you hear a lot, the trail provides. This one sounds kind of hokey and woo-woo-y and, kind of new agey, but, it's true. It's a weird phenomenon that sometimes when you just let the universe do what it needs to do, it'll provide you with what you need. Now, that doesn't mean you don't prepare yourself and aren't ready for eventualities, but sometimes you just can't plan certain things and things crop up and you need the trail to provide, and it does. It is the strangest thing. And, I didn't really believe it, but, I experienced it and it's true. Like, for example, when Jeff and I needed to go back up to Katahdin, we weren't sure when we were going to do it, but we wanted to do it before we got too far south. And we were nowhere near the towns that had car rentals, and it would have cost a lot to get there by shuttle. And we didn't want to spend the money. I mean, we could have, but we didn't want to. And someone picked us up on the side of the road who happened to be going to one of those towns, and just it lined up perfectly. Like, we couldn't have asked for a better introduction into the trail provides. And at the end of the day, we ended up providing for someone else as well. So, it snowballs. So it's a strange thing, but it's true. It works. So that is my little rant on what I didn't know about the AT before I started. I hope you enjoyed this and found it useful or entertaining. And if you did, give it a thumbs up and do subscribe. This helps people find this information who might be planning their own trail and didn't even know I existed. All right, well, thank you very much for watching and enjoying my non-snowy winter hike here in Canada. It'll snow tomorrow.